but and cut us out of all of these different high level positions in the professional area. So what did we have to do? We had to make those students. We had to prepare those students for what was to come of their futures. And so there was some changes here and there. There were some experiments here and there, but all coming from a place of pure love and respect and admiration for our people. That's not the case on coming from the white side. First of all, his ass is in this job because they fired him from being superintendent of the white schools because he fucked up over there. So instead of his ass going back to school and learning something and then going and trying to be a superintendent for real, his ass says, well, shit, put me over to black people because I'm going to stay in a high position. I can't be demoted. What I'm going to do? Go be a principal? Oh, no. That's beneath me now. I'm superintendent. So his ass ain't got no job. So he go talk to his friends, his cronies, and they say, well, you know what? Well, shit, you know what? Let's just make you a position. And in that position, you just oversee. Y'all remember that word, right? Oversee. You just oversee the black schools. Now, we didn't just be very clear about what's going on here. We didn't ask y'all to teach us. We was already doing that. We didn't ask y'all to train us. We had people doing that. There was a lot of educators that came from up north and trained black educators to be educators. There was also black educators that trained other black educators in the South. It's not like, it's like what I said before. This is something that's innate within us. The period right after enslavement, what's the first thing we asked for? We need to get educated. And we didn't ask people to educate us. We said we need to educate ourselves. We need to get educated by any means. And what happened? Well, I talk about some of those stories in the episode before about how some of the schools, some of the first black schools got started, how some of the first black teachers were professionally trained. I also talked about how a lot of those people who were formerly enslaved got college degrees. Some of them hadn't. I mean, they first few years of being on this earth, they didn't know how to read and write, but they learned it. Not only did they learn it, they excelled at it. That's why you see a huge emergence of black black higher education institutions, because we said, well, shit, since they don't want us there, then we'll just do it ourselves. And that's a lot of what was going on. But I just need people to realize, when you say stuff like we were better off before segregation, you sound like an idiot. You sound like someone who has not read, but you sound like an idiot, someone who's not experienced, someone who heard something from somebody else. Because only a message like that is something that's, hearsay type stuff. Because I just can't see somebody saying, well, we was better off being mistreated and stolen from, and as long as we were separate, it was better. No. So we had a few things going on here. One, we was separated, but then we had overseers who was telling us what to do, how to live, how to educate our kids. And then they was stealing from us. Like, that's a lot of shit going on there. It's not just cut and dry as, oh, it was segregation, we was better off. And those black attorneys some of whom are still living today. Fred Gray, his book, Bus Ride to Justice. Beautiful, beautiful book. I may read some excerpts from it in the future, but it's a beautiful book. Detailed all the things that he went through. Fred Gray is still living today. It would just now that would be something worth sitting and listening to. Some of the things that he had to experience, how he had to beat. How do you learn a system? Not just learn it and copy it, but learn it and create new from it. And not just create new just for the sake of creating, but creating new to beat it. It's like creating a game, creating a strategy to play a game and then beat the game while carrying out your strategy. Like that's some thinking that's beyond me. I know my mind doesn't work on those levels. Talk about walking and chewing gum at the same time. Like we could barely pay attention for, that had to take a lot of deep thinking and analyzing. And this man, Fred Gray, is still alive, still very much alive. He was a very close attorney worked a lot of cases for MLK, worked directly with MLK. He's still very much alive, and he's still working. I want to say he's over 80 now, but he's still working. And he said that actually in his book. He said his plan was to destroy everything about Jim Crow, its laws, everything that you could think of associated with Jim Crow. That was his life's work, he was set out to destroy it. And he did. And he still is. Now, you sit down and talk to somebody like Fred Gray and ask him if we were better off before, where he talked about how he had to ride 4 or 5 buses, I want to say. I think it was about 2 or 3 hours. He said the commute was to go to law school because his school didn't allow, where he lived, they didn't allow black people to go to law school. And so he had to travel hours every day to go to law school. Getting up at, as they would call it, 4 day in the morning. That's one of them grandma words. 4 day in the morning. I always ask my grandma, what time is 4 day? She would say 4 day. That's what it is. That's what time it is. 4 day. If it's day, you're late. Okay? That was exactly how my grandmother would describe it. If it's day, you're late. So in fighting these cases, those black lawyers saw that the amount of money that that was being spent on black children's education was significantly lower than the white children. And the cases specifically highlighted the stark inequities. It was just plain. And in those cases, like I said, we sought equitable educational resources. That's it. We wanted the same. If I pay $5 and you pay $5 and you give back $5, I want to give back $5 too. It's just that simple. It's nothing hard about that. But what was happening is black people was paying $5, white people was paying $5, black people was getting back $1, white people was getting back $4. Well, there's a difference. I want my $3. Run me my money. Because I'm paying it too, right? taxation without representation? That's what we fight for, right? Equal representation. Okay. And in that equal representation, that also includes resources. The resources should be distributed equally. That was the grievance from the Declaration of Independence, which is exactly what they argued in those cases. We did not ask to sit on side of white children. That was not the ask. Now, it evolved into a broader push for desegregation as a strategy. Now, that was only because state governments resisted equitable resource ac- Let me try that again. It evolved. Okay, because this is like it pisses me off because I'm thinking about the people who say stuff like "we're better off." The the strategy evolved into desegregation because the state governments resisted. They didn't want to allocate the resources in an equitable way. They still did not. They wanted to continue to give the white families who paid $5, $4 back, and the black families who paid $5, $1 back. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to keep doing that. And so the the movement, the secret desegregation part of it was just added to the strategy that was being fought in the courts. Now it was demonstration, okay? Because in the same way today, we can't see those court cases, right? Unless we go searching for them or reading them. I'm a school teacher, middle school teacher. I know we teach it, but what do we teach about it? We don't go deep into it. I was an adult when I learned about the number disparities. Like reading those numbers, the actual disparities and how much they spent on black children versus white children, that's not taught in middle school history. We do teach on Brown versus Board of Education, but it's just surface level. We don't go deep into it. And so you may have a kid at no fault of their own that's taught that Brown versus Board of Education allowed black kids to go to school with white kids. And that's it. They don't know how much detail goes into that. And that's because we don't teach it. We just don't teach it. Not only that, you can't put that on a test. And I'm not saying us as teachers can't put it on a test. The state, because and this is another conversation we'll have at another time about how these standardized tests are created. Teachers aren't writing these tests. We don't write the tests, especially the standardized tests. We don't see those tests until the day of. Actually, we don't see them the day of. The kids see them. We are not supposed to look at them. And they put out a release test usually the following year after that test has been set. And that release test is, from what we're told, is not the exact same test that the students saw. So we never see these tests. We couldn't tell you, the way the questions are worded based on the actual test. When we go and study all of this and kind of, break down these tests to teach it to our students, because yes, that's what we do. We teach the test. We use release tests that I can't tell you that I've ever had my hands, I've had my hands on it, never sat down and actually read an actual test that a student took. That's all that is controlled by the state. And so you can't test that.